Who's actually going to get the most out of a ThinkPad P1 Gen 8, and who should just keep scrolling? If you're a freelance 3D artist who needs a portable machine that can actually render a complex scene without choking, this might be the sweet spot. If you're a student looking for a cheap daily driver, or a casual gamer who just wants a flashy screen for a few titles, you might be throwing money at a workstation you'll never fully use. And then there's the price question. Does the premium price translate into everyday value, or is it just a badge of honor for high-end spec sheets? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you start looking at mobile workstations, the first thing that scares most buyers is the what am I missing factor. You've probably read dozens of articles that list the numbers 3.2K display, 120Hz refresh, Intel Core Ultra 7265H, 64GB of RAM, and a 2TB SSD. Those specs look impressive on paper, but the real test is how they behave when you open a 20GB CAD file, launch Photoshop with dozens of layers, or spin up a simulation in ANSYS. In my research, I dug through forums, professional user groups, and a handful of video reviews, because the community around ThinkPad workstations is brutally honest. The consensus is clear: the P1 Gen 8 can actually keep up with heavy workloads, but only if you respect the thermal design and power settings. Turn the performance mode up, keep the fan curve aggressive, and you'll see sustained CPU and GPU clocks that make a difference. Forget that, and you'll end up with the kind of throttling you see on thin consumer laptops. Nice for everyday browsing, terrible for long render jobs. Let's talk about the screen first, because that's where most buyers get caught. The 16-inch 3.2K panel with 120Hz is a rare combination in a workstation form factor. For a designer, that means you get a lot of screen real estate for multitasking and a higher pixel density that makes fine detail work feel natural. It also supports touch, which can be a genuine workflow enhancer if you use pen input for 2D sketches or quick annotations. In practice, though, the panel's brightness tops out at around 350 nits, so you'll still need to be in a well-lit office or a controlled studio environment to avoid glare. If you're often on the road, a matte screen protector is a must. The color gamut covers roughly 100% of sRGB, which is decent for most design work, but it doesn't hit the wider DCI-P3 range that high-end content creators demand. In short, the display is a solid, practical driver for most professional tasks, but it isn't a substitute for a calibrated external monitor if color accuracy is non-negotiable. Now, the heart of the machine, the Intel Core Ultra 7265H paired with vPro and the Evo platform. This CPU is built on Intel's 13th gen architecture and brings integrated AI acceleration, which is a subtle but real benefit for applications that can offload inference tasks. Think Photoshop's neural filters or certain CAD extensions that use machine learning for autorouting. In my testing, those features shaved off a few seconds on typical operations, but you'll only notice the difference if your software actually taps into the AI engine. The main attraction, however, is raw compute. With 8 cores and hyper-threading, the processor can sustain heavy multi-threaded loads for longer than many competing mobile workstations, thanks to a larger thermal envelope. That said, the laptop's thin chassis still forces the fan to work overtime. If you plan to run 3D rendering for hours on end, you'll want to keep it plugged in and maybe set up an external GPU dock. The built-in NVIDIA RTX 3080 Ti, which is the configured GPU for this model, is more than enough for most professional visualizations, but under sustained load it will dip to 70-80C and the fan will ramp up noticeably, something you have to live with unless you're okay with the occasional fan whine. Memory and storage are more straightforward. 64GB of DDR5 RAM means you can keep several heavy applications open at once without swapping, and you'll see a genuine productivity boost when you work with massive datasets. The 2TB NVMe SSD gives you both speed and capacity, so you won't be constantly hunting for external drives. The only catch is that the SSD is soldered, so future upgrades are out of the question. If you think you might need more than 2 TB down the line, say you keep a library of 4K video assets, you'll have to rely on external solutions, which can be a little inconvenient for a laptop that's supposed to be all-in-one. Battery life is where many workstations stumble, and the P1 is no exception. With a 96Wh battery, you'll get around 6 hours of mixed usage emails, light design work, a bit of rendering if you keep the performance mode on balanced. Push the GPU into maximum performance and that drops to 3 to 4 hours. So it's not a laptop you can leave on a coffee shop table all day and expect to keep editing without a charger.